Talent in India right now is popping. The job is not to constrict creativity, it is possibly to offer opportunities and environments where that almost like enable that creativity.
Entrepreneurs are born, successful entrepreneurs are made.
If there's something from childhood that I take on till today, one would be food, two would be your linkage with community and how important it is to drop anchors any city you go. And the third was work is very sacred.
Key components of marketing.
Up and loud, front and center, and innate curiosity. The only time I did feel hesitant were in project meetings, where essentially what the construct would be that I would be the youngest female of color in the room.
Shreya Soni, thank you for having us in your beautiful, highly functional offices of the Ideas Lab. You are the CEO and founder of the Ideas Lab, the Lab Magazine, Thali Foundation, and countless numerous other ventures. Thank you for having us. Um, I wanted to start at the beginning by asking you, quite simply, where were you born?
So, born in Hyderabad, spent my first decade in Hyderabad. My dad's a Hyderabad boy. My mom moved cities to be with him,
Moved cities from?
from Delhi
From there.
to Hyderabad. Formative years, beautifully happy, community driven. Like, I only have happy memories
Right.
of my time there.
And you have an older brother.
I have an older brother.
An older brother. And you were close growing up?
Yeah, very close.
Yes, I'm sure.
Very close.
And was there a parent you gravitated toward more growing up? Did you change alliances? What was it like? Family dynamics, for example.
Oddly so, I think now in hindsight,
In hindsight, always.
yeah, I think I was like a full replica of my father growing up in terms of mannerisms, choices of what we would like to eat, the movies we watched, our sense of humor. And I think at some point, when I moved out of my house the very first time when I'd gone to study, I think it became really apparent that my mom is my go-to forever best friend. She's like, I want to say she's like the oldest and the longest standing friendship I've had.
You approached your mothers if you had any issues or questions,
First
doubts.
dial.
First time? Growing up as well?
Yeah, hands
Yeah.
down. Yeah.
Mm.
My mom's my first dial.
Your first time?
Yeah.
Meaning you were, it doesn't mean you were emotionally closer to any parent, but your mother, you felt more secure sharing your,
For sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Even if she didn't understand the nuance or the context of the challenge at hand. But Manju is my first dial.
That's so beautiful, really. And school?
So, did
Hyderabad.
my early years in Hyderabad. Excellent, really, really fun. I continue to be, friends with some of my peers back then.
Wow.
Also in touch with my favorite school teacher,
Name?
Anupma Chand, ma'am. She was my class teacher and taught us English. And I think like my early years of like really understanding what a good partnership, collaboration, transfer of knowledge is emerged from Chand ma'am. And she moved to Delhi, and I think like this family was the most excited, and we immediately called her and all of that. But like, yeah, it's still in touch, and she's really fantastic.
Sure. Are you a reactive person? Like, for example, in a situation, right, with people. And when did you learn to gauge and act in its absoluteness, to evaluate a decision independent of context or situation?
I know I was always coached to be responsive and not reactive from a very early age. So I've always dabbled in theater and dramatics, like school, college, every phase of my life. And at that point in time, one of your early fundamental truths of that is never react. And your job is not to just read the lines. It is always in response to maybe even a change in energy on stage.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I think like that early coaching on stage and Ramsock in college really kind of like coached me to be the person at work, at home, or wherever, even within my closest friendships. Reaction wasn't my first
Right.
kind of footing. It was always respond to the person, the environment, the curveball thrown your way. Because that dialogue of how do you be responsive and not reactive is an inner dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And you're building these new pathways or muscles.
Constantly. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's a constant dialogue with self. And this is a new curveball or this is a new environment, and you have to be your own best friend in those scenarios.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't know if it was like outwardly confidence. That may have been a byproduct. But I think the intrinsic joy of that process was, in many ways, I became my favorite pal.
Yes. Wow.
So,
Incredible.
more it was more the sit deep into your chair, own your space, feel really comfortable of just you and yourself and your thoughts and all of that.
Of course, and that you carried through in your life and today.
Here's
as well.
hoping, yeah, here's hoping.
So coming back from school to home, how was the dynamics at home? You discussed your school. Was it very open? Was it very communicative?
So, mom, dad, Bhaiya and me were a very close-knit
Close-knit.
family. Yeah, and like we're very close to our mom's side and our dad's side. Like it's a family that really operates off connection, and it's revered very highly. At home, happy childhood, safe childhood. Lots of laughter, banter, lots of food. I think my first understanding of food is the fundamental understanding of it was laid out at home.
Yeah, it usually starts at home. Food, I mean, anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a functional relationship. Like, there are two types of people. There's someone who lives to eat, and there's someone who
Right.
eats to live.
Yeah.
And I think this family falls in
Right.
the latter. But also, I think now this is going to feel like a confessional 101, but I think
fine,
now
please.
again in
Confess.
hindsight, yeah, it's, the only format I ever saw was a format where I had two working parents.
Yes.
And I mean, that little, slightly immature, juvenile child like mine didn't necessarily understand topics like work-life balance or what being an adult meant. But for me, my reference point was always seeing my parents work. So I want to say, if there's something from childhood that I take on till today, one would be food. Two would be your linkage with community and how important it is to drop anchors.
And at 10, you moved to Delhi. And did you feel, I mean, you were talking about values, etc. Did you feel a significant loss of foundational stability moving? Or did it mean a different kind of growth for you?
I think my first 2 years in Delhi, both for my brother and me, like we just did not enjoy it.
Where did you live? Where were you?
So from Hyderabad to Delhi, it was just a cultural shift.
Yeah.
Even though we spoke the language at home, Hindi was not our priority language in Hyderabad. And there was an overemphasis on being educated in the finesse and nuance of the language, which I really flopped at. So that was a wee bit of a struggle, but also just like, I just did not enjoy my time. And, there was a running joke in the family that the parents were told that if your children go missing one morning, don't worry. if essentially in our minds, we thought Hyderabad, Delhi is not that far and it's like two neighborhoods. They said, your children have walked back to Hyderabad because we cannot stay put in the city.
Oh,
And
God,
then
I
we
see.
found ways and forms to drop anchors here and make new best friends and
Yeah, earliest,
love the food. And,
of course.
Yeah.
Early memories were not so fond, but you learned to
No.
adapt
yeah.
and drop anchors, as you said.
Yeah, I think it soon emerged. The penny kind of dropped that this is going to be home for all practical purposes. So and this is a repeat pattern, and I'll tell you more about it. But it was like the option was fall in love with the city and make it your own, or like find ways to via education or via work, find a way of moving out.
And of course, your parents shifted because of work,
Yes.
I imagine,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
And you attended which college? In
So
which school?
I did I went to Venkateshwara College,
Right.
Delhi University. Again, fantastic. Some of my closest best friends who are family today are the ones I
You met.
went to college
Yeah,
with.
okay.
Yeah.
Shreya, you're an incredibly resilient person. I know, I've known you for quite some time now. Who or what made you that way?
I want to say it's a little bit of a jugalbandi of a lot of factors. One is, of course, we are byproducts of our upbringing and environment. That's a big contributor. Second is, I know this is going to sound a bit woo-woo, but I really believe in it. But I want to say my sun sign.
Yes.
So I'm a true blue Scorpio.
Scorpio.
I haven't met another Scorpio who isn't as hardwired or resilient. I think it just comes as a byproduct of our little gang of Scorps. And I want to say the third bit would be, I don't know, my work environment.
Yeah.
And the opportunities or the curveballs it presented. And it, in a great way, shapes or builds this steadiness, this innate inner steadiness. Because I think if you're in and it's
Yeah.
for everyone in the room, we work in industries that often offer you days, if not quarters and maybe years, of a series of flight or fight situations.
Right. Yes.
And in that scenario and in the plurality of those fight or flight, opportunities, the decisions you make the person of who you are. So what you may call as XYZ is, I think it's maybe a byproduct of living out those.
The right
Scenarios.
decisions, yeah, it's difficult to make the right decisions. Consultation, communication with people you admire help for you to stick to the right path. I mean, I'm sure the family, the social support, the family support you had was crucial to this. Your doubts,
Absolutely.
it's from in school you could communicate it properly to your face. It's so crucial.
Absolutely. And one has to also sometimes be innately curious and open in believing that there is support and mentorship and coaching and friendship in a lot of scenarios aside from just your family. And in many ways, I've been very fortunate in finding that support in bosses and managers and colleagues and friends and in the most surprising turn of events.
Right. Warwick University, you applied from college in Delhi to study
economics and finance,
And finance, economics and finance.
Yeah.
Was Warwick, the UK in general, a culture shock, or did it reaffirm your sense of purpose?
It wasn't as much of a culture shock as it was this springboard for me to know how small my mind was and how tiny of a life I had been exposed to. And I'm not trying to belittle everything that I'd experienced between Delhi and Hyderabad, but in the most beautiful, poetic way, I was just like truly a speck in the universe. And whether it was the friends I made or the professors we had or my bosses and mentors and my peers, whoever, that little eclectic mix of people I met during my time studying and working there, it just kind of like honestly made me aware of the untouched real estate in my body
Wow.
and mind.
Wow. And your innate curiosity that you always carried with you was so beneficial for you there. You weren't close to any
I
other.
want to say yes.
You weren't close to any experiences. You were in the moment.
Yeah,
curious
and
about
it was
everything.
marvelous, right?
Marvelous.
Like suddenly like that, whether that is your reading of like, I'm going to say even like pop culture or fashion or
Which year? So I have a
literature.
yeah, which 2000 and
So from, I want to say 7, 8
yeah, so fashion culture.
up until 2012, everything felt like you're stretching the boundaries and like the 4 walls that you were within suddenly collapsed. And then there was this wild, crazy playground to discover.
Right.
So it was like going into, think of your favorite museum or exhibit, and it's room after room of discovery. And for me, my time there felt like that.
Right. And at that age, I mean, you feel everything because you're learning to process properly.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I did really for the first time
Yeah.
at university. You know, a range of emotions, and to be prudent as well, and at the same time determined to find your purpose, right? Basically, who Shreya Soni might be. Do you have any ventures, memories, setbacks, successes you might want to share with the viewers at university?
Yeah, I feel like maybe at that point in time, I think I was also following a template formula, which was like you read economics in college and then you bundle that up with your knowledge of business and finance, and then you land up at a consultancy. And, I think in many ways, there were a lot of us living out that was your blueprint of success. And I follow that to the T.
There's nothing wrong with that. Yes, you have to.
Yeah, and in some ways, when you're like, largely speaking, you're the good kid, you kind of like follow the blueprint. And I want to say, I think my initial training and coaching at work, even though I may not work in those industries so much today, but all the skills that I learned at my time in Ernst & Young is something that I use actively today.
Yes, I'm sure. Ernst & Young, yes, which is an incredibly precise professional service network provider. Forbes 100 companies to work for, right? Logical next step for you for following that template, right? Now, in what capacity did you work for them?
So I was a change management consultant.
In London, yes.
In London. I was on their advisory desk. And also it's awful, but I bagged the job at the time of the economic meltdown.
Yeah. Oh.
Which basically meant that large mammoth companies had to suddenly organize themselves to be leaner, more nimble-footed at a time of that crisis. And that's what I was trained to thereby be part of teams and project teams on how do you go into some of your top 20, your world's top 20 organizations. These are legacy institutions who've been doing the drill for decades, if not more. And imagine being like this 20-something silly gun and trying to tell a legacy brand, how can you organize yourselves to be more structure-driven, process-driven, leaner? How do you pivot to this change? Again, respond and not react.
Yes.
And that's how it all came back. And so for me, it felt like very suited to the very little lived experience I had, whether that was DramSoc, whether that was my learning of like respond, don't react. Or even like my understanding of like, how do you constantly evolve and pivot in response to changing consumer environments?
It's a day in, day out work on yourself.
Absolutely. And that's the only way one can thrive in these industries.
Absolutely. Just quick, where did you live in London while you were working for them?
So I was on Baker Street.
Oh, nice.
This beautiful, like park facing. I got really lucky with that house. Yeah, really good memories
Commuting,
of.
bus action, what?
Oh no, straight up. It was the stop from there to London Bridge.
London Bridge.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's where the office was. A beautiful building.
Right.
Also, like my early love for coffee,
Yes.
that was the foundation.
Around
of
the
it.
office areas.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like our office had killer coffee. And now today, my colleagues always laugh that this may be one of the few agencies that takes their coffee so seriously, and we refuse. Like it would be our possibly one of the saddest days for us if we switched to machine coffee or instant. So,
Okay,
like
coffee
we
was
really
important.
take pride in, where are we sourcing our bean, who is our coffee, da, 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 the whole 9 yards. And I think that was because we took our coffee so
Of
seriously
course,
at Ernst & Young.
as one must.
Yeah, exactly.
I've lived in London. I mean, what
Yeah.
was it like for you? Work, friends, colleagues, friends, going out, discovering new places. Were you able to do that, or you?
Heaps. Heaps. It was a rinse and repeat of, you kind of like live weekend to weekend.
Yes. Work
So,
week.
Yeah, exactly. And
go
like,
out on the
as a consultant, your life again. And that was the early training, which is why I don't get rattled by, living between cities. You kind of take the early morning, like 6 a.m. flight or train out of London because you're usually staffed on projects that are outside of London. Um, you, fly or take the train back on a Friday, go into work, which is your admin day, file your expenses, meet your managers, project management, and then at least like I was blessed to be on project teams that valued and cherished weekends to reset, aside from a few hours on a Saturday morning, but the weekends were yours, which basically meant that it was every new club, every new restaurant, galleries and museums, all the parks, and that city and its parks stunning. Heaps of shopping, which is also where I think I blew up my savings. And, back on the 6 a.m. train to God knows where.
Wow.
And it was a rinse and repeat.
Yeah. Initially, was it a struggle for you? I mean, you must have been slightly out of sorts. I mean, with colleagues adapting, you must be constantly thinking what I should do to fit in. Was it?
Honestly, I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
So for me, I thought that's what the management consultant life is. So
Right.
for me, I was just like, okay, this is the drill. Got it. No complaints. I think the only time I did feel hesitant were in project meetings, where essentially what the construct would be that I would be the youngest female of color in the room. And I was always surrounded by incredibly sharp,
Right.
but white men.
Oh.
And more often than not, you're kind of like, and also like in your early years of any career, you don't know it all. So you're kind of silly. So I think in those moments, I clearly remember myself feeling so hesitant in voicing my thoughts or articulating a problem statement or just not having the vocabulary to ask the right question even. Because, you're the youngest, also woman, also color.
Yeah.
So there were like these variables that I suddenly became a little bit more aware of.
Right.
And those dynamics I didn't feel in college, I didn't feel in school, I didn't feel
In the
growing
workplace, yeah.
Yeah.
But you were able to gain in confidence through sheer hard work and.
So at EY, at least in London, you're assigned a coach who's not your direct manager, who's not your daily ops project manager. This is a coach who is looking out for you from your career perspective, from a growth perspective. I got so lucky because my coach was Sally Ann, and she's an NLP practitioner. And Sally Ann would take me through the motions of how do you build confidence on shaky ground? How do you remove personal from those environments? And how do you kind of like wear different hats apply objectivity and practicality and become a third party, neutral party to observe even your own self. So, and I think in many ways, what she did was, if I already had the seed and understanding of don't be reactive, be responsive, she only buffered it up even more beautifully. So I had someone called Peter Ledbetter, I had Sally Ann, and a bunch of other peers like Abid and Nina and Rob, and the way they incredibly shaped my understanding, not so much of the technical skill, but more the intangible personal skills and the soft skills,
Incredible.
was by far, I think, my richest education.
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
In the field as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
It's what I get to employ and utilize and exercise on a daily basis today.
Today, yes. What, in your valued experience, are the key components of marketing?
Number one, up and loud, front and center, an innate curiosity. You need to be curious about not yourself, and yourself would mean either the marketer and the agency in place, but also as the brand. It's not about you. You need to be curious about the landscape that you're operating in. Second is an ear to the ground of what a very rapidly evolving consumer is saying.
Yeah.
And where are they saying it? So I think between that, and the third bit I want to say would be consistency, which is not so much about like staying consistent to this one blueprint and I'm committed and married to this idea, but consistent in terms of like staying true to what is that problem statement that my brand was hoping to offer in this exciting a consumer market, and not giving up. So you can pivot, no problem. You should be nimble-footed in an exciting economy like ours. But if you are innately curious, if you always have an ear, if not an ear and a half to the ground, and if you're not necessarily kind of being open to being responsive and not making it about yourself, but like molding your solution to what you're listening to, I feel between that trifecta, you'll see decent success in this market.
Now, you're settled in Delhi, right? Talk me through the idea, the fascinating idea behind India's first secretly run supper club.
Yeah.
Which year?
This was 2012.
2012, okay.
Yeah. So,
yes, please.
14 years back. So essentially, I wish I had a sexier answer. But the truth is, I'd moved back from London. At that point, I thought Delhi would be XYZ. It turned out to be ABC. And again, my mother presented me with the same thing when I moved back from Hyderabad, to Delhi.
Yeah.
It was either find ways to fall in love with the city and make it your own, or via work, via education, via whatever, find another city that you can drop your anchor. So at that point in time, I was just used to a more banter-driven, conversation-first way of living in London, where it didn't matter who you're speaking to. Once work is over and you hit your local pub, I could be sitting next to a trader who just closed a £1 billion deal and someone who just wrapped up construction around the corner. And the three of us are getting our gin and tonics with extra lime. And everything was about banter. And I missed that. And nothing ended with, could I get your number? You know, it was just, I missed that terribly so. So when I moved back to Delhi and I was again stuck at that cycle of meeting the same people weekend after weekend, same conversation, I was like, hang on, surely there are avenues to mix this up. And essentially, going back to what I told you about, my family, like in our top 3 ethos, as at least this gang, food is in the top 3. And we break bread to break ice. And it is our love language, and it is a big expression of our identity. And I said, okay, well, then maybe food is how we're going to make new friends.
Interesting.
And then the secret layer was added on because of two things. One, as a kid, I read heaps of Nancy Drew and Secret Seven and Famous Five and all of that, and Agatha Christie. So for me, like, it suddenly became like more adventurous and more fun. Being like, wait, like,
It
could
piques
this
people's
show up?
curiosity, no? Right?
Absolutely.
Like, what is the
and
secret?
it could have belly flopped terribly, so being like it felt like a cold marketing email. But in my head, I was like, no, if you're curious enough about people and like kind of, I also had a sense of an interest in storytelling. If you do it in that
Very
merger,
good. Very original.
don't come in for me. Because then I'm back in meeting my same friends weekend after weekend. Come in for the concept. Does that tickle your fancy?
Right. I understand. I understand. Any struggles initially you had marketing it? Who are some of the key people?
I want to say, I think because of the very 4 words that constituted the brand. Delhi, so again, it defined as some kind of a community, and it was members only. Secret, instantly everyone was hooked, and like their curiosity was piqued and being like, sorry, how do I get in, and why wasn't I called, and why did I see that person? So it worked in our favor. So it kind of like marketed its own story. And then Supper Club, I mean, food. Like,
Food, yeah.
We live in a country that is driven by food.
Yeah.
So I would go to the extent of saying that the very name and the core business model marketed itself. So
word of mouth.
And I think like till date, as a marketer and who employs different strategies for marketing, I want to say there is nothing more sound. There is nothing more as effective as the stickiness of word of mouth. Because that creates its own like cascade domino effect chain network that you can never manufacture or control. So even though I thought that the first one was a pilot experiment, and I said, you know what, masti, but now that's it. But 3 days after the first one, and we didn't have like such access to social media or, documentation and all of the whole hazard things we do today. But by the 3rd day, the email, because it was an email only, like no one knew who they were speaking to. Our inbox was jammed with restaurateurs, some fantastic partners within the FMCG alcohol space, and guests who said, what, when, where. And that's it. And that kind of like gave us enough movement and more and of a runway.
To get locations to partners.
For 4 years.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was fun.
And then your identity was revealed.
Yes. Yeah.
Why?
So, for 4 years, I'd almost led this alternate life where I was like hiding in the car when an experience was on. I was hiding on the roof behind a big gambla, in kitchens and whole 9 yards. I was never present at any of the Supper Club experiences aside from a couple. And at that point in time, we built out this blueprint and were a delivery execution partner for your best wine and spirits brands in the country who were operating in the country at that point in time. What I was really yearning for is to have a say in how they speak to the Indian consumer. And I'll give you an example. So say, for example, in the first 4 years, we would get briefs about brown spirit, cool, 80% market to men, 20% women. And for me, that was bizarre. Like, even forget my personal feelings about the stereotyping of consumers. From a business perspective, I was like, you're leaving money on the table if you're not speaking to everyone in the room. And I no longer wanted to be a delivery partner for these incredible brands run by incredibly smart brand managers. I wanted to have a say in the shaping of that initial strategy.
Right.
So by the fourth year, every fiber of my being was just itching to be, in those rooms and on those tables.
I see.
And got very, very lucky again. By the third year, one of our consistent partners eventually offered us a seat on the table, and they said, listen, it's going to be tricky collaborating with a faceless, nameless identity, and maybe reconsider. And if you want to be shaping how India operates today, what about identity then? And for me, I've always been the person where it is product over person. And if I wanted to build something of value and long-standing value, I thought, well, my identity should not be, the success of this can't be hinged upon one person's identity. And I said, well, if I am the very cause of the demise of the idea, well, I'll live with it.
Yeah.
And I got an excellent counsel from some of my closest friends, Abhineet and Amelia, and I would almost weigh out the pros and cons with them. And it became more apparent to me that I was always interested in building product over person. So for me, eventually, I was
Like you mentioned earlier, yeah.
what's the worst that could happen? Belly flops. I had a great run. I'm highly employable because of my skill set. ठीक है, हो गया. And that's when the identity was revealed. And I was just very, very sure that I wanted to be part of creating the narrative for brand strategy.
Which you did, of course. I mean, the Supper Club established you as a brand, Shreya Soni. And then it provided you the motivation, the drive, the equity maybe for your next ventures, which were the Ideas Lab, the Lab Mag, and the Thali Foundation. Right?
Yep.
Talk me through a little bit how it happened, that step.
They sound like individual entities, but there are two things I think I would love to talk about. One is, these are not independent individual entities as much as an expression of who I am. These are expressions of at that very chaotic crossway and chauraha of creativity, brand, community, and storytelling. All then beautifully wrapped up with some form of taste and aesthetic. And those are the kind of big drivers of taste, culture, brand, and storytelling. Those are the four things that have usually driven me from my early years. And these became more maybe more nuanced expressions of thereby being, okay, now this is an agency and this is a production, this is a digital food magazine, so on and so forth. But in many ways, if you kind of strip it down, these are just expressions of who I am and how I conduct myself on a daily basis. The second thing I would say is that the shaping of it into more formal, well-suited kind of companies, so to speak, was a lot to do with also the colleagues I surrounded myself with. So a lot of the shaping of it was because the teams that I've worked with have been as curious, as creative, as kind of forward-thinking. So you kind of need to also rely on their good graces of how they shaped it into these incredible units, so to say. So
Expression of yourself.
In many ways, yeah. And those muscles were being built, I think, from school and college and
Of course they do. Of course, education, work experience.
Yeah,
and mentorship, and then surrounding yourself with the right
100%.
people. Yeah, you found your identity.
And in many ways, yeah. And a lot of it was actually maybe a byproduct of friendship and relationships and coaching and co-working with, the person next to me and all of the above.
Of course.
So they became expressions of all of that.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Shreya, entrepreneurs are born, successful entrepreneurs are made. Now, What are some of the inherent predispositions, you think, and characteristics of an entrepreneur? Certain skills are cultivated through education, experience, mentorship, right? You have a combination of both. Would you agree? I mean, you are so open to trends and behaviors, and you don't miss an opportunity. Is that
I think anyone who may be watching this and is an entrepreneur
No.
or has founded anything, product, service, story, piece of art, anything, it is an extremely lonely process. So I think what happens in that scenario is that you can constantly rely only on yourself.
Lonely, yes.
Absolutely. And also, if you're like a single founder, then triply so. And then you don't have like, someone to maybe like share the load, share the risk, share the uncertainty
Yeah.
with. Because with teams, you get to distribute the success and the joy. But the anxiety and the stress around the uncertainty or just the financial risks of it are the buck has to stop with pretty much on your table.
Yeah.
So, and this is not like, oh my God, only like marketing agency founders, etc. I'm saying like even an artist who puts out their composition or their piece of art outside this may resonate. That, in many ways, you kind of like the biggest learning in this whole experience has been that you kind of like this physical being has to become a universe of multiple beings. And like on some days, you are going to be, this hyper process driven type A, right side brain, problem solver.
Yeah.
And then on certain days, you are going to be highly creative, highly moody, highly, like be that person who has the risk appetite to throw heaps of spaghetti on the wall and some will stick and some will fall and then beauty will emerge from that process. And then on some days, you are going to be just a ball of anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
These were the
weirdly
challenges.
so, this physical being is like almost a universe of like multiple beings and multiple instances, and through that, the only common denominator will be who you are as a person.
So hard. Really.
Yeah, and you have to constantly remind yourself on a daily basis, if not like every 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, why are you doing this? And what does this mean to you? And if this is a creative expression of who you stand for, then what are we going to prioritize today?
Yeah. Now, the lab mag was revolutionary. I mean, would it be fair to say? I mean, Vogue is fashion and the lab mag is a whole culinary industry experience from fork to table. What is it?
It would be cocky as hell for me to say that. I don't think we're that. I think that we have some incredible players, writers, storytellers in shaping the food culture in India today. I'm friends with most of those. What I will say is maybe our unique strength that kind of differentiates the lab mag from anyone else. And I want to say I will have everyone's nod and blessing on this, and I don't think many people would dispute this, is that we are 100% independent, boutique and creative. So we're not driven. Our first kind of like point of concern or solution to the problem statement on our table isn't driven by the commercials or the financial feasibility of running a food magazine in India. That's not our first one. And because it isn't, it allows us to operate in a slightly more
Free.
with a sense of freedom.
Yeah.
And also, more importantly, a sense of choice.
Yeah.
So the gang of writers that we have at the Lab Mag today, it is it is just the most beautiful, joyful moment when you hear one of your writers saying, but that's not the lab mag and that's not what we stand for.
Mm.
And that, you're afforded that ability to say that line because you're not working backwards from a sales
Correct.
target. So that I feel coupled with our tone of voice or our deep obsession of shaping the food narrative and food culture in India, we've done it. This is our 10th year.
10th year.
And to still stay independent and also, have the good graces, I think, or the decent functioning minds to be nimble footed and pivot to this crazy digital space
Right.
and still, uphold that trust and that contract that we have with our reader of not diluting their trust. I feel again that little trisector that maybe sets us 3 inches, 4 inches apart from our peers in the business.
Consistency, and you deliver.
Yeah.
Who's your target audience?
Ooh. Honestly, it started off, I know this sounds a little bit, I am indulging in myself right now, but a decade back, I started, it was called, again, DSSE back then, and not the Lab Mag, DS. But it started off because I started writing stories that I wanted to read. And I did not want to come from a place of elevated truths and access and all of that. I wanted banter in my writing. I wanted personality in stuff that I was reading. And at that point in time, there was more reverence in food writing than it felt like one person was speaking to me as opposed to a dialogue between me and my writer and the chef and the restaurateur. So I started writing for my own self. And I was like, this is the kind of stuff I will always embrace. And this is the kind of like long form writing I will always continue reading. And then I think that was a starting kind of like, pulse point.
Yeah.
And I think because we were so stubborn about that being our biggest throbbing pulse point, that we attracted talent that honored that contract with the reader.
Yeah, was it difficult to get them to participate in the same ethos that you
No,
wanted to create?
it's a little bit of what you said, a little while back, which is talent in India right now is popping. It is stunning how articulate, nuanced, electric, creative, crazy the talent is. And you just have to be selective in who you...
Right. But you're also giving them a platform to express their...
Absolutely. And at that point in time, then the job is not to constrict creativity. It is possibly to offer opportunities and environments that almost like enable their creativity. And then the team, and it's been an evolving team over the last 10 years. I would go on record to say that you can cross-check with any ex or current, colleague. We've always had the common North Star. And it is about this contract that we have with our reader, which is we will be curious, we will offer our perspective, we will be nimble-footed in terms of how we present that story to you, but we will meet you on your terms. We'll just present it sometimes with the realities of our world.
Of course. And simplicity is key. I mean, you're the founder, the CEO, your ideas, your philosophy permeates throughout the company. And it's easy if you're strong at the top for everyone to, understand the philosophy of that company. And it's, it's an achievement.
I'm smiling
It's an achievement.
only because I feel like a lot of my colleagues that may be watching this are giggling.
Okay. You think?
I want to say so.
No, but also you make it fun. So that's an integral part of your core
that
philosophy.
That I will not deny. I do make it fun. But honestly, there are days where my colleagues drive movement and momentum and consistency towards that North Star. It cannot be one person, it takes a village.
But that strength comes from, the
You
people you
know.
surround yourselves with.
Absolutely.
And how difficult today is it for brands to tell their story correctly?
I would like to say that every era may have come with its own unique challenges and curveballs. But I do want to say that the one that we're in currently is I would like to say it is way more challenging. And I'll tell you why. Because I feel like one is the mediums of reaching out and the bridges to your intended audience have multiplied drastically. Secondly, the very audience who's at the other end of the bridge has changed incredibly. I think it is an exciting audience. It is an audience not just sitting with money, it is an audience that is now kind of like also checking the value against that contract. It is also more dynamic because this is an audience that doesn't necessarily now seek legitimacy from the West. It is almost rewarding brands that partake in conversations that are culturally, contextually current to their life in India today. They reward brands who are responding, not reacting, who are not, who are actually genuinely interested in that dialogue and transaction and not performative. And they're rewarding recall more than scale. So at a point in time, say, for example, my parents would pass on their consumer trust to a brand that maybe has been in the market and the playground for decades and decades and legacy implied trust.
Loyalty.
Whereas for me, I'm like, cool, you've been in the hood for enough time, so you know the drill. But now tell me, how do you want to kind of like speak to me on also my terms?
I see.
And I feel for those reasons and the multiplicity of the ways to shape narrative, to build brand equity, to market your product or service, and thereby also have genuine personality backing it, it's a lot trickier today. So thereby you have to be a lot more intentional with who do you want to be? And how are you genuinely adding value to someone who is our target audience? And it's no longer this like I'm gunning for everyone and I'm gunning for the whole pie of pizza. I think the consumers are really liking it if they know that, well, I'm the guy you're trying to speak to right now.
Personal.
Yeah. And
Simple.
thereby the stickiness and the recall of that transaction.
You had also experienced being the only woman of a certain race in your days at Ernst & Young, and I'm sure in other work experiences as well.
Yeah.
That anxiety is
I mean, in rooms till date.
to date.
The percentage of women in positions of leadership, power, we have heaps of more work to do. It's more often than not that my point of contact on the other end or the signing authority or the one who's really framing that big aha, which is going to have its cascade onto the consumer market for at least 6 months, more often than not, is the gentleman on the other side.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Thereby also when are you in that chair from a strategic perspective and not an aesthetic perspective is also, food for thought.
Yeah. And how important do you think is it for role models, founders, leaders to step forward and to be more transparent about their weaknesses and strengths even? For people to understand that, everyone goes through some kind of insecurity, anxiety, and it's important to have a conversation about it.
I think on paper,
yeah.
I would imagine massively, exponentially beneficial. I think in practice and in reality, it may be a lot trickier and nuanced than what it is on paper. And I'll explain why. I think when you are leading something, there's also the perception and the notional value that thereby you are the best equipped person to
Yes, okay.
lead a accumulation of temperaments, skill sets, personalities, exposures, moods, and everyone is allowed a daily mood. Like, we are not robots yet. And then you are that person who has been placed in charge to thereby take charge. So in those moments, are you allowed a space to show weakness or a slip in mood, or you could also be having a really rubbish day yourself? I'm not sure you're always afforded that luxury. But I think where you can, the flip of that is, at least like how I do it, is that in moments of true decision making, or you have to remove yourself from the situation. And this is no longer about your bad day, but it is about the North Star of that problem statement and how do we all get there. And when things are a lot more time sensitive or issue sensitive, you have to find ways to remove yourself from that, and then truly kind of like resign and be that instrument of leadership or change or getting things done, and have that sleeves rolled up attitude and let's get going. I think that is the muscle that one can build over time, and it's tough as hell, but I think it is very achievable. And I think your teams and your clients and your readers and your consumers may cherish you a little bit more for that expression than taking that opportunity and platform to voice your personal struggle. I've always found my teams respond better when I show up for them and have a sleeves rolled up attitude and find that little slip and opportunity to then share what your personal struggle may be. But being mindful of when you are sharing that, and it can't come at a cost of their work.
The Thavi Foundation. Will you talk us through what that is, please?
Yeah. Again, killer start story. Our accounts team, and specifically Mrinal and Ranjita, and they really must get credit for this. They caught us out one day saying, we kind of like run so many campaigns and we're constantly billing out different projects for different cuisines, but we know the honest truth that as a team, you all actually only love a thali. And we were just like, hey, we're not being honest to our own core self. And the mirror was propped up by Mrinal and Ranjita. And we said, okay, great. Well, we're going to construct a platform that celebrates this love of ours. And the more homework and research and kind of like speaking and understanding the construct only educated us into this beautiful world of regional cuisine, storytelling.
Oh, I see. Yes.
And the fact that I think thalis are so everyday for a big majority of Indians, from a practical perspective, from a utility perspective, or even in moments of celebration, a thal is that it is the ultimate chef's tasting. It is the most beautiful art plus technically sound balance of flavor, texture. It is the symphony. It's the ultimate symphony.
Yes.
So that kind of gave birth into our very committed interest in saying, it's just not marketed well enough.
And you market that how? And then in your...
So again, different expressions of it. So whether that is, people were celebrating back in the day, there was a Taco Tuesday phase that India went through, as did every other country. And he said, well, why not Thali Thursdays? Think Thursdays, think Thali. And we have enough and more regions to celebrate where that region is kind of like beautifully captured in the form of a thali. And there are enough practitioners and ingredients and so on and so forth. So we've got not just the thali tradition, which is this larger festival format, but then there is insane storytelling that that part of the team works on. We've got something called, this is my favorite, which is that, we were bored of these wine and cheese events, even though love both independently and together. But we said, well, what about cocktails and chakna? And local regional snacks is what drives this team.
Right.
Why not celebrate that and platform that? So we have different IPs and
You do?
stories
Oh,
to
that's-
kind of share.
And you have events also?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, heaps of these are actual physical, community-driven experiences in Delhi and Bombay as of now, and hopefully a lot more.
Incredible. Okay, nearly at the end, but a few questions. Shreya Soni, your greatest fear?
Ooh, being reactive and not
Processing.
taking a beat, not losing myself and being responsive. I think the day I have a phase where I'm just reactive, it'll be
I'm becoming like that.
tough titties for me, man.
I'm becoming like that. I'm learning to step away from a situations which I might react to.
Yeah.
Because if you react to a situation immediately, you might just you might be your heightened emotions might be in control of you.
Absolutely. And I'm okay with regrets of variables outside of me. The bit that I'm pretty sure that I would eat me alive would be regrets of how I conducted myself in situations.
Oof. Yes.
And we have heaps of those.
Heaps.
I mean, all of us, we're only human, but I think my fear would be where I let those external agencies and emotions and reactions take such a greater control of my responses.
Yes. What is the quality you like most or admire most in a woman?
I love. And I work with, so all our companies, I would go to the extent of saying 80% women-led, women in positions of delivery, execution, creativity, leadership, whole nine yards. So I really enjoy that. The trait that I admire the most in anyone with who I work with or outside or even at an art fair is when she takes more space in a room and doesn't make herself smaller in response or reaction to the situation or the person or second guessing. And we've all done that. Like I've done that. I do that, I think, on a daily basis. And then there are moments in a day where I will sit deeper into my chair. I will take more space in the room. I will be vocal and I will not second guess myself. And that's the trait in it just lights something in me when I see that in a peer.
Nice. And in a man?
When they know how to maybe sometimes exercise fairness, I feel not operating from a space of, I know it, let me tell you how, but operating from a space of, you may be, equally well-versed in that topic or whatever, and just be fair in how you conduct yourself and not operate from elevated positioning.
Completely.
I feel like, and I have the good fortune of working with some of them, and more often than not, you're not working with that kind of male peer, but someone who can just operate from some platform of fairness.
Yeah, I don't know completely.
Is what I admire.
And is food, lastly, is food poetry to you?
In every possible way, note, key, composition.
Really? Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. It's afforded me a career.
It has.
So in
Wonderful.
some ways, yes, absolutely.
And what's next?
Oof. I'm not going to talk about like what's next work-wise because who knows,
generally
man.
in
But
life.
they're just like me as a person, I would hope that what next would be to go back to that original thought of like what drives me is product over person. And I would love to start like sinking my feet deeper or getting my fingers dirtier into building institutions that will outlive this person.
Mm.
So whatever I do, I hope in the coming, months and years is something that like the beneficiaries of that, friends, family, colleagues, brands, whoever, they cherish the fact that it happened than the person who made it happen.
Absolutely. And I met you a decade ago, and I'm so I have a lot of admiration for what you've been able to accomplish and what you will accomplish in the future. And I thank you again for having us and according your very valued time to us. Thank you very
This
much,
was
Shreya.
amazing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.